welcome to the Red Zone Podcast, Episode 3. I'm on Get 2, Electric Boogaloo. This is Elvin,
And I'm JR.
and today we are going to cover several topics. Besides the aforementioned Amonkhet Part 2 discussion that we had from the previous episode, this time we're going to be focusing on mechanics. We're also going to be talking about L5R. We're also going to discuss the news that came from Magic recently, the Nationals update, the new set, just the name of the new set, and this thing called Iconic Masters. So, starting off on the topic of L5R, what exactly is L5R? For our
You mean what it
audience,
stands for?
yeah, what does L5R stand for? Enlighten our viewers.
Yeah, okay. So L5R, or Legend of the Five Rings, is this, dare we say Oriental?
Let's not use that racist term.
It's an East Asian themed
It's, I
card
think it's
game.
Asian inspired. Oh my
East
gosh.
Asian. Oh, no, it's actually
So,
Asian.
I think
'Cause
the
it's-
timestamp
'cause
would be 2 minutes into racism.
No, we're not racist. Come on. We're
We're not racist comments. We're not
we're,
racist.
we're actually Asian, so it's not racist.
Oh yeah, of course. I remember that. Yeah.
That's
so
a
we're,
rule.
yeah, okay.
No. But I was saying it's actually Asian
Inspired.
and not East Asian because of it gets to the Burning Sands, which is
Yeah,
the,
that's actually it. That's where the Burning
West
Sands
Asian
and
part.
the Ivory Kingdoms is actually where you have the East Asian portion. But yeah, it's more of
No. The
Southeast
Burning
Asian,
Sands is the West Asian portion.
I guess.
Technically, well, it doesn't actually equate to
It was inspired by Chinese, Japanese, Korean,
Indian.
and some Indian, because there's unicorns and stuff. I guess Irish. But anyway, it's a card game that came out during the 90s, around the same time as Magic, actually. Well, a little bit after that, and it has a long history, especially for us. Myself, Jr. used to play L5R on a regular basis, even playing in tournaments.
Yeah. Recently though, the tournament turnouts and like the player base have dropped significantly because, well, for one, because everyone's just playing Magic now, and because secondly, I guess because of how the prize support isn't as good as it used to be.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's what happens when the card game is sort of being in the process of changing. And so we did see this change with L5R a few years ago in 2015, 2016, when it was sold to Fantasy Flight.
It was sold to Fantasy Flight last year, I believe.
Yeah, okay. So the deal was finalized last year for
No,
for
but
L5R.
even before that sale, there was already a decline.
Yeah, exactly. But
But
I don't think that it helped the transition. So there are many stories that were unfinished, and that's sort of one of the things that L5R had in its long storied career. Something that allowed it to stand out in the field of Magic and Wild Storms and Overpower, VS,
Yeah.
all these different card games. Was
VS is by VS we mean versus
sorry,
for our viewers in America.
yeah, okay. Another topic that we might talk about in the future. But in any case, L5R was a story-driven game where tournament results resulted in changes in the story, which was cool because nobody really did that at the time.
I think even up to now,
That's
or
true.
maybe
I
some
don't-
card name we don't know of does that. I guess
maybe
maybe.
Force of Will or something.
Nah,
But
no.
that's the thing. They had such trust in their player community that they were able to create like tournaments where the winner will dictate the story. Magic made something similar with the World Championship prizes, where winning player would actually design a Magic card. But I don't think that's happening anymore, right? In
Yeah,
the
because
Invitational?
it doesn't really make any sense to do that, like design wise. So
Of course, it doesn't make design wise, but from a perspective of
I mean, for perspective of players, it's cool, yeah. But I mean, I guess they're thinking that the world champion, like the people winning world championship, are pros anyway, and they don't really care about about those things, and they care more about winning and getting money. So
Well, that's sort of the thing. So L5R was different in this where it would focus on the story, and unfortunately that led to certain mechanical problems. Gold glut, where people would have too much gold, which is what the mana that was used. But there has been changes, particularly with the ownership. AEG, the manufacturer of the very popular Smash Up game,
mhm.
was the old uh, publisher of L5R, who then sold it to Fantasy Flight Games.
Well, to be technical, Wizards actually owned L5 Bar for a couple of years at one point.
Yeah, that's true. Wizards actually owned
In
L5R.
between AEG ownership, right?
Yes, AEG sort of disappeared. It was like they turned they were AEG Five Rings Publishing, and then they went away. They sold it to Wizards of the Coast, who had it for a short
Actually,
period
the
of
the
time.
the conspiracy theory was that Wizards bought it to kill the game, which
Okay,
kind of makes sense because a lot of cards that went out during that were printed during the time that Wizards had the set were broken, to say the least. So at least broken then. I mean, as the card game progressed, similar to Magic, the newer sets have like better cards in common and uncommon. So the old broken cards don't seem as broken anymore. But at that time, they printed that, it was really broken. So yeah.
I see. I wasn't able to play as much during that time, but yeah, I just sort of remember something like that. But now, as I said, the Fantasy Flight games got hold of this, and as everybody knows, Fantasy Flight is a publisher of board games, but they also publish something called living card games. For our fans that aren't familiar, living card games is a type of card game where uh, the cards are released at a semi-regular interval, and each pack contains all of the cards for that particular sets, like really small sets of less than 100 cards, and all of the cards that you would need to play would be there in that set. All the cards that that set contained would be in that pack that you buy.
Yeah, the thing with, like, when I first heard of the LCG model, I was like, this would be cheaper since you don't need to trade for cards. You can just buy what you need because you buy the set and have it. But eventually it was a problem because, like, for the other games where you need four obs, or maybe three obs of certain cards, you would need to buy multiples of the expansion, which you could share with a friend or whatever, which isn't that expensive. But then you end up having so many cards that you're not using. Well, it's not like that doesn't happen with TCGs, but I mean, if you're thinking it's gonna be a lot cheaper than a TCG, it is a bit, but
It'd be more comparable, right?
it's, yeah, it's comparable. But it is a little bit cheaper, I guess, and it's, at least it's easier to get what you need. But yeah, don't be fooled into thinking that it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Hobbies will cost money, and that's sort of just one of the facts. But this was a new way of doing it, and Fantasy Flight was known to be one of the better manufacturers of living card games. They have a Star Wars living card game, a Call of Cthulhu. The
Not the card stock though, right?
I have
I
not.
don't like
I've heard
the.
bad. I've heard that there's some living card games had bad card stock, but the ones for the Game of Thrones card game, which similar to L5R, was a collectible card game first, then became a living card game. So that's sort of like a precedent as far as this is concerned.
The good thing about this though is, like, the one of the issues that L5R players are having, at least for those who are not in the states, is that it's getting hard to trade for your pieces because, unlike Magic, well, I guess it's similar to some people in Magic. Legend of the Five Rings players are very loyal to their clan. Like, if you because there are seven base clans and other additional clans. For the first set, they're printing the first seven, I believe. Anyway,
That's correct.
anyway, people tend to be loyal to their clans and just collect the cards that belong to their clans. The problem with having a small player base, it's hard to locally source those cards. I mean, I guess in the States it's not a problem with eBay and, like, I don't know what else you used to trade with, but in other
Craigslist.
countries, yeah, Craigslist maybe, I don't know, but in other countries it's getting a little bit hard to get specific cards. But with how they're doing this with the LCG model, at least you could get the cards as long as you had the money.
Yeah, but that's sort of part of the appeal. One of the things that they don't see in, let's say, Magic, is that's what we're talking about most of the time, is this sort of loyalty to a particular aspect of the game. Although there are people that say, "Oh, I'm a red player. I really like red." That's more of like a current preference.
Which is
Uh,
wrong.
yeah, well, and that's sort of what L5R had with clans. The clans were these different ways of playing and also different philosophies. And with the new acquisition of L5R by Fantasy Flight Games, a publisher that's very known to well known to handle IPs with a lot of story in a very respectful and innovative way.
What do you mean by IPs?
I'm sorry, by IPs I mean intellectual properties like Star Wars or Call of Cthulhu. So those are different intellectual properties that Fantasy Flight is known to work well with, and they are able to create games that are innovative and have a, a great amount of interesting gameplay, so to speak.
Yeah, I've noticed that they give more emphasis to theme compared to any other publisher. Let's not forget about Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, exactly. Battlestar Galactica is a board game that we played a lot, and
My
uh,
favorite board game.
yeah, and the thing is, we were playing it for a long time, and we enjoy it. It's a game of betrayal, of secrets, of tr-
Basically, they got the series dead on
yeah. But that's the thing. We weren't really people that watched the series
before that.
before that, and we just played the game and we enjoyed the game, and we knew, we're geeks. We know about Battlestar Galactica, but we didn't really enjoy it as much when it first came out. And one time we just so happened to say, "Hey, let's play Battlestar Galactica and let's have the series, let's have the first season play in the background." And we were surprised to see episodes unfolding in front of us that was unfolding in the game. Things were happening in the story that were happening in the game. And I think that's a testament to how well designed, how well
Yeah,
Fantasy Flight.
even the mechanics and a lot of things. It's not just the story. It's the how the like a character would be designed, like in TCG terms, how a card is designed, which they do in Magic and L5R and everything else. But it's hard to describe. But the level of what's the term for
I
this?
think what the word you're looking for is how well represented
Yeah,
the character
well, I
is.
guess I'm looking for a better word, but yeah,
Yeah,
that will
close
do.
is a close one, but yeah,
Oh,
that's
maybe we should have an episode on that eventually. But yeah, for now, let's say that they're really good with themes.
yeah, creating mechanics that really capture the essence of that theme and show it in a way that makes sense. Which so this with this new release of L5R, there are a lot of different changes to the game. Some of it still remain, provinces, personalities, the rings, but then they have been changed to be more in tune with the spirit of the game and the characters and the philosophy behind that. To introducing fading characters. So there's a term I can't remember the Japanese term that they used when they were talking about it, but it's like the beauty of impermanence. So
Hmm.
it's like a Japanese concept of something being beautiful because it is not permanent, and so your creatures in or personalities
Personalities.
in L5R come into play, but they are on a clock. They'll only stay in play for a certain number of turns or for a certain number of actions, and they eventually will achieve their destiny and fade from the battlefield.
Which is different from how they used to play out in the original game.
Yeah, in the original game, you build up these forces over time, and I think that's where some of the people didn't like this
The
buildup
math.
of this buildup of armies, and people would not want to attack until they're sure that they will have overwhelming force and win outright, or just sort of wait for that one card that'll give them a sure victory. And so games of L5R would devolve into these arms races that two people would be looking at each other, building and building their army until somebody breaks and attacks. So this one would be more of a different way of playing the game, and it's really exciting to see what other new things they've added to the game to adapt that spirit of L5R, this spirit of where honor is more powerful than steel, that type of thing.
We'll eventually get because one of our Red Zone members is really hardcore L5R fanatic, Mark Quick. We've known him in some of the episodes. We'll get him to talk about, to talk more about the game or I guess once we have more details on it, and maybe try to get you to play.
Yeah, and we hope to, covering this and other games that we think you guys will be interested in. For us, we're two former players. I'm more of the thematic type of player because I enjoy the world, I enjoy the stories. I've been and still am a game master for the RPG, which I'm excited to see what Fantasy Flight will do about that as well.
Who holds the rights to the RPG?
Also, Fantasy Flight. Fantasy Flight owns
Fantasy Flight
the
now.
IP. Yes,
But
they
but
own,
who published the last book? Was it AEG?
yes, AEG published
Okay.
the last fourth edition was the last book they published.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to have that. So as a thematic player, I'm excited about the L5R game, and JR is more of a competitive player, and so I hope that L5R, this new system, this new product from Fantasy Flight, would meet the desires of both types of players, and hopefully you guys will share our enthusiasm about this as more details come up.
Okay.
So the next thing that we're going to be talking about would be the news from Magic, and we've been given this sort of spoiler, I guess.
Oh, which one are we talking about? First?
We're talking about Iconic Masters.
Okay, so what exactly did you
Okay.
get?
So actually, I was listening to the Magic Mike's podcast. Shout out to the Magic Mike podcast, because
We need like some podcasts have a bell or a horn like whenever they name drop.
Aruga, something like that.
Yeah,
like,
something like that.
like a bar-
I'm gonna get a
a soundboard.
like no, like people comment what do you want the sound to be.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking a bell, but yeah, whatever.
The morning with Elvin Jr.
My name is Jeff.
Aruga.
Have you watched PewDiePie lately?
No, I
He,
don't.
he's been. My name is Jeff. The from
Oh,
21
gosh.
Jump Street.
21 Jump Street. Oh, that guy. Okay, okay.
When Channing Tatum played, was pretending to be a Mexican,
Oh, okay.
and
I
he's
don't
like,
remember
"My
that
name
part.
is Jeff." That's his
Well-
Mexican voice.
So,
And PewDiePie now has that on his soundboard because he's crazy. But yeah,
yeah, I don't. I'm. Will we have a soundboard? Comment.
we
put your
we
comments.
actually have the hardware to do that, but
Do we have the right? Does anyone have the right to do that?
to have a soundboard.
To have a soundboard? Only. Are we willing to cross that line?
No, am I willing to set it up? Is the real question.
Well,
but
yeah. So anyway, I was listening to the Magic Mike's podcast, and they were just talking about a new piece of information that came to them. There was a WPN email that was sent out that had a link that went to this page on the WPN website that had
was it official? Was
yes,
this
an official
post?
WPN email, link to a website that's had this black bordered, blank squared thing called Iconic Masters. And when you click on it, it brought you to a page that said you do not have permission to access this site. So it's not a 404, not a this doesn't exist. It's you do not have access to it. So this was a Twitter picture. This picture was tweeted last week, and since then more news came out to the point of being announced that there is going to be a new set of Magic coming out called Iconic Masters
In November.
in November of this year.
17 to be exact.
Yeah, in November 2017.
No, November 17, 2017.
2017. Which contains the iconic creatures and spells.
They describe it as the most powerful cards in Magic. They don't even say iconic. I guess because it's redundant, but yeah.
But what does that mean? Most powerful cards in Magic.
They actually mentioned like angels, sphinxes, demons, dragons, and I don't know.
What's a powerful sphinx?
Moving on.
Okay, so that's actually an interesting thing. I don't know what's gonna come up, but the next few days will yield more information. But right now, that's all we have. Like, it's called Iconic Masters. It's gonna come out in November, and it will contain the most powerful cards in Magic.
I actually have more info on it because I'm awesome that way. They announced
Sure.
that they actually someone said
Are you hiding this person for their protection?
I'm hiding everything for everyone's protection. Anyway, but this is a fact. They won't be spoiling any cards until the release. As in, you won't see any cards until you open the packs.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they plan to do that. I mean, because people steal pictures and stuff. But yeah, they're doing that because they wanted to have the same. Because the whole point of Iconic Masters is it's the most iconic and powerful cards over the 23 years of Magic. Is it 23?
I don't remember.
Whatever, the 20 plus years of Magic. So they wanted to give you the feeling of that like time is non-linear. You're there somewhere. Yeah, no,
So I'm gonna open the pack and then see a Black Lotus.
It's reserve list aside, it's actually possible. Like because they didn't.
I'll open the pack and see a Juzam Jin. It's
Oh,
Juzam
well,
Jin.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's possible.
Juzam Jin. It's in the
Yeah, because that's the whole thing. And the reason they're not spoiling cards is they want you to have the same feeling as you would have had going into a pre-release, or were they called pre-releases back then in the 90s? Anyway, whatever the release that because before the
I
days
think they're
of
called lunches or something. Because it's the 90s.
the
There's,
launch.
there's
Yeah.
no internet.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, I mean there is, but yeah. But for
Dial-up.
those of you who didn't play or didn't know about Magic back then, you would actually go to a launch date and not know what was in the set and open the packs and like, ooh, this is in. Oh, this is good and stuff like that. So they want, although this will probably be reprints. I'm thinking 100% of the cards would be reprints, but you wouldn't know what cards you could possibly get until that day, which would actually make for an interesting unboxing.
Okay, yeah, we'll look forward to that. Will we have our
Yeah, of course.
our sponsor?
Who wouldn't?
Our sponsor will.
Because
open
what I've said, reserve list aside, they could actually print whatever they want. So
Peach Garden Oath from Portal Three Kingdoms.
that's actually, I mean, those aren't in the those are expensive cards that are not in the reserve list, like the.
That
I
is
mean,
true.
well, not that card, but like the Imperial Seals and whatever recruiters and everything.
Imperial
those things.
Recruiter,
Yeah, I guess they're iconic now because of EDH.
Zodiac Dragon,
Yeah, but the point is
Shu General,
they could easily print any expensive card that they want, and it
Wu
would be-
Cavalry. I'm just
No,
making
no.
these cards up. I'm not sure if they are actually real.
There
I'm just
probably
using-
are.
I'm just combining different kingdoms from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is what the set Portal Three Kingdoms was based off, and just random words.
Yeah,
Imperial
but
Recruiter.
yeah. Anyway, so that's their goal. That's the ultimate goal.
Is there a Lubu card?
There was, right?
Oh, I didn't
There
know
was like Dubu something general. Or, I don't know.
that. Lubu, because Lubu is awesome. Dynasty Warriors.
So that's additional info.
Well,
that
thank you
may
for
or
that
may
new
not
information.
know.
I'm sure many Bothans died to give you that information.
Yeah.
So the next topic is Nationals. And outside of Glee, I really know nothing about Nationals. So I'm going to rely a lot on your information here, JR. Well, tell us, what is nationals so that we can have context for the changes that they've made.
Okay, well, so for the past X years, we didn't have nationals. We had the World Magic Cup qualifiers, which are three tournaments where the winners get to represent your country in the World Magic Cup along with your team captain, which would be the guy with most pro points. Last February, or February of 2017, they announced that we're going back to nationals. The problem with that is, in the initial announcement, is essentially they just made the WMCQs into one tournament and called it nationals without really changing anything, which of course initially excited everyone because they thought they were getting nationals back, but then pissed them off because they realized that no, we're not getting nationals.
Those are
And
the nationals that they were expecting.
yeah, because the difference between nationals and WMCQs were that the WMCQs were a specific constructed format. The past few years we were having two standard formats and a modern format, or no, or the other way around, two moderns and a standard format.
EDH.
No, there's no ADH. Anyway, Nationals is much like the Pro Tour, where you have a constructed format, which is normally standard for Nationals, and a bunch of booster draft, and a bunch because they tend to do one, two, or maybe three, depending on the number of players. Because as you know, booster drafts can only run like 3 or 4 rounds, depending on how much you want to push it. So before it used to alternate between standard and booster draft.
EDH.
Day one, no, like, you keep pushing me EDH, but no. So it's standard, booster draft, and then day two booster draft, and then standard, something like that, and then you got your you have your top eight, which is standard again. So for now, what they announced is that they've heard everyone. In short, they're saying they've read Reddit, and that everyone's pissed. So they're going back to multi-format nationals, and they are having an X number of standard and an X number of drafts depending on the player turnout. I assume the bigger your tournament is, the more draft rounds.
So nationals, is it a single day event or is it multiple days?
It's 2 days.
So how can it become a multiple version tourney? So on day one they're like standard, and day two they're modern. How exactly does that work?
No, like I mentioned, on day one you do standard and draft, like 4 rounds of standard, 3 to 4 rounds of draft, depending on how much they want to push draft. It's normally just 3 rounds, and then day two you do draft then standard.
So day two is also standard.
No, I just said that day one is standard and draft, and then day two is draft and then standard, with the same decks, with the same standard decks.
So day one is draft and standard, and day two is draft and standard again.
No, day one is standard then draft. Day two is draft then standard.
Okay, so where does modern come in?
There's no modern.
That's the only thing I wanted to find out, was like if there was ever any modern.
If they do decide to put modern in it, then there won't be standard. So
So it's gonna
so
be
technically
draft and then
speaking,
modern,
it's
then
it's
modern and
constructed. It's constructed
And not constructed.
and
Draft.
and draft and then draft and then constructed, with the constructed ones being in the same format. Because
Cool.
you know they obviously want to push standard, because there's no reason why you would want to push modern anyway, unless Worlds is gonna be heavy on modern, which they don't want to do again because of all the issues from last year. Also, if you're wondering what happened to the three, this is still way back in the February announcement. But if you're wondering why there's just one nationals instead of the three WMCQs, they're gonna get the top two to represent the country, and plus the top pro points earner. So that's 3 people in the team instead of last year's 4, because there were apparently issues with the fourth player not playing enough rounds, and people were literally fighting about it for some countries.
Like physically?
Yeah, like well, maybe yelling at each other, but literally people were disagreeing with each other on who gets to play. Because you know you earned your spot in nationals and you want to play.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Because I see the reason why they want 4 players. It's because if one player doesn't make it, you still have a whole team.
An alternate, yeah. Most sports do have alternates. It's just strange where, I guess maybe it's a maturity thing, where if you are an alternate, then you shouldn't really worry if you're gonna play or compete or not. I think the word that should be used is compete rather than just play, because everybody's there to compete, but not everybody will be able to compete because some of them are alternates.
Yeah,
So-
but the problem with what they did with Magic was they didn't specify that the fourth person is an alternate. It's like 4 rounds, I think, technically. I mean, 4 mini tournaments, same as what nationals is, like constructed, limited, limited constructed, something like that. And it has to be a different person that sits out in every round, something like that. But then you have 4 people sitting out instead of three, something like
Oh,
that.
okay.
But yeah,
That seems strange.
something weird like that.
Well, I can't really comment if it's strange or not, but having a national tournament sounds like an interesting thing to have. Is it going to be? You said before that it used to be the WMCQs.
Yeah.
So instead of having multiple WMCQs, it'll now just be
One
one
nationals and they
national,
get the top two.
one big national tournament.
Like you have 3 nationals, but everyone would play all 3 anyway. So it's
Mm.
still gonna be the same
So
size.
let me see if I understand this correctly. There are three nationals because there are three slots in the team to be filled.
Yeah,
Uh,
4. Well, yeah, 3 to be filled because one is the top pro points guy.
who's the top pro points guy right now?
Where
In our country?
in our country, it's someone who's not from here.
Oh,
No. Like Mike Ron is from. I
Oh,
guess
Huron.
Huron,
I remember seeing him in the on the YouTubes.
winning limited team limited
Yeah,
GPs back to
with
back. He's a really
our
good
team.
limited player. Oh, in with our team, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a semi-pro from the U.S. or Canada or something else. He's not Canadian or American, I think, but he's from there and then married someone from here,
And then now we got him.
and
We
so now
we
he's actually based here.
was because we do that with a lot of stars like Dainara Torres. Yeah, we got her.
I guess.
Yeah, try to Google that, folks. With nationals, there's been a change, and is this change good? Is it change bad? Some people say it's good. JR, what do you think? Your opinion? Because we don't really say news; we're just opinion people.
I would say like, is it good competitively or is it good like?
What do you like it?
I like it because it gets like if you played nationals before, it gives you that somewhat of a nostalgic thing. I guess not just a nostalgic thing, because nationals used to be it used to be a lot harder to qualify for nationals, which I think they would start doing starting next year. They just didn't wanna. Because it was mid-season when they announced it, so I think they just didn't want to, like for people who were just aiming to get into WMCQs, they didn't want to crush people's dreams and change and
Spirits.
change like the qualifications mid-season. So I'm guessing that they will be changing formats next year because previously it's like just the top like 64 of each country that get to play national, something like that.
Hmm.
It's like less than 80, and it's really hard to qualify. So I'm thinking they might start doing that in the coming years, which is I guess bad for people who just wanna play, but it's good for actual competitive people because you just it's a celebration. It's a free tournament where you get to draft a couple of times for free, and they actually didn't announce if there's gonna be an entrance fee for nationals this time because they are still giving away the blink was it inkmot blink
Ink moth.
inkmot, the more expensive one, for everyone who's participating. So there's gonna be probably gonna be a like $10 fee for nationals, but you get a foil inkmot WPN card, so that's fine. The drawback is you only get one of those instead of 3 if you were playing on all 3 nationals. The only good thing about this one is you get to draft, but otherwise, I mean, 3 tournaments with times 5 planeswalker points multipliers is still gonna be. People are still gonna favor that. But yeah, you get to draft for free, so I guess
That's
Oh,
actually
and one of the things why I favor this as a competitive player because it's limited and constructed, so it's not just some guy getting lucky with the deck. I mean, you actually have to know how to play Magic to win. So
that usually is a good sign when you have to know how to play the game to win the game.
yeah,
That is really great. Um, okay, sarcasm aside, this sounds like a really cool thing. I've not really been interested in WMCQs. I guess it's because
You're
It's a
not flying out.
qualifier. Yeah, it's hard to understand what it is. But when you say nationals, everybody knows what a national competition is.
Yeah, and because if you win a WMCQ, you qualified for WMC. If you win nationals, aside from qualifying for WMC, you get to be named national champion.
And that has its own intangible reward.
Yep.
That actually covers the news that we have for nationals, and we go back now to the sandy dunes of Amonkhet, little old Amonkhet, where we have 4 new mechanics to talk about.
Yeah, last week we decided that Amonkhet was too big of a topic to not break down. So last week we did like what we thought about the art
Yeah,
and
this is from just an aesthetic point of view and maybe like a thematic point of view, and just a brief summary of that. Amonkhet, scored high on all of them except for the inventions, which is a little bit strange, but
no,
everything
no,
else.
they're not inventions though.
I'm sorry, I mean the masterpieces.
Yeah, which are what are they called?
Invocations.
Invocations. What is an invocation for our viewers who do not know?
Invocation. Webster's dictionary defines an invocation.
And our podcasters who don't know.
Yeah. So no, it's not that I don't know. I don't want to use. I want to say I want it to come from somebody. I have an idea of what an invocation is.
Yeah, I know.
From the root
I,
word of
I
invoke.
I just
Okay.
wanna link
So
why these things are called invocations.
because it's a fancy way of saying magic.
Yeah,
But yeah, invocation is the action of invoking or someone
Wow.
invoking something or someone for assistance, as in an authority, such as summoning of a deity or the supernatural.
I guess they went with this because of the deity part.
Yeah, I think
That's
this.
it.
Do all of the invocations feature at least one of the gods?
Yes. Or
Most of them.
yes, actually.
I
Except
know
except for
Daze-
one card.
Really?
Yeah. Oh well,
Most of
not
them.
not like Mind Twist has a demon, so I guess it's not a god, but
Well, the thing is, my
yeah, but
my brain canon is this. Like,
I didn't notice
all
that.
of these things.
There's like 2 cards that don't, but hint it somewhat.
oh, then there you go. It's kind of like all of the inventions here come from the blessings of these gods, and you're actually invoking. When you cast the Force of Will, you're actually calling the Heron
Okay,
Bird god.
I take that back. Pact of Negation has a god. He's just tiny.
A tiny picture of the god.
No, it's like the parting of the water thing.
Oh, yeah,
Remember
okay,
that?
okay, so-
Then like there's actually a guy parting it.
Who's that guy again? The Heron Beak god.
Whoa, Moses? What?
No, Moses isn't a god. I'm sorry.
No, I mean parting. Never mind. Yeah, yeah. There is a guy parting the in
Yeah,
the
the
Pact of
Heron-
Negation. Even Mind Sensor, I guess, is the one that doesn't feature a god. It features the actual Even Mind Sensor, but then still it doesn't feature exactly the gods, but there's always someone there that you invoke. So I guess it kind of makes sense.
Does it have like Hazamit the pervert?
Yeah, it has a better art of him, the pervert
This
guy.
this one, the
Yeah, has Ret the pervert. If you look at the invocation, it actually looks like it says pervert compared to the card.
yeah, I think we
Anyway.
mentioned that last week.
It's worth mentioning again.
Yeah,
For-
it will be
for-
mentioned every time we talk about Amonkhet. So get ready, people.
Shout out,
Every single time.
shout out to those who
Where my perverts at? You have to register.
Oh, we need to
with the
be.
NBI.
Remember though, we need to be family friendly now.
Yeah, we are
'cause-
family friendly. We're getting
more,
all the perverts out. All
Yeah.
those perverts, go away.
Okay.
All right. So
what were we talking about?
Amonkhet
Mechanics.
has mechanics up the wazoo.
No, they're just 4.
That wazoo can only contain 4.
Okay.
It's a small wazoo.
No, technically it's 3 mechanics and a new card type.
Wait, well,
The
but
aftermath
the card
cards-
type has a mechanic, right?
Yeah, but no. It's a card type.
K.
It's a split card type.
All right.
So let's talk about the mechanics.
Let's talk about what's coming back. The comeback kid, the return, the
The mummy
return of the
returns?
arrive. What is it?
The Mummy Returns.
Yeah, the mummy that returned. Which is the what? Which is the mechanic
Okay,
that came back?
so first, cycling is back, which is
One of the
awesome
best-
for us living end players.
One of the best one of the best mechanics. Anytime that you have something that can get rid of a card that you don't need is great. Cycling came out in Urza's block, I think.
I don't know. It came out like
Even earlier.
like No, it there's like four times that it came out in sets. I don't
I
even
mean, I
remember
mean, like
anymore. I
the
don't.
first
I don't
time
know.
cycling came out
Possibly.
was in the Urza block, right?
Anyway, some old set. So just a couple of things to
Yeah, it was
remember.
introduced in the Urza Saga.
Okay. So what about cycling? What do we talk about cycling? Because everybody knows what cycling
Are you
is.
sure everybody knows what cycling is?
Okay, cycling is a card with cycling has a mana cost that you could pay
To
at instant speed
cycle.
to cycle the card.
What
To
does cycle?
cycle means to discard a card and draw a card. So, like Sweltering Suns, for example, is a cost one red does something and has the ability cycle for three generic. So yeah,
So three generic mana.
you
You
get to
cycle,
discard it. You
you
get to
discard it, and then you draw a new card.
So why is that good and why is that bad? First, it's good for let's go back to Sweltering Suns, which is a sorcery that deals 3 to each creature. So it's a pyroclasm for 3, which costs 3. So that's good vanilla test wise. Add a cycling ability to it, then it's perfect. Because you put that card in against aggro, but sometimes you play against mid range or control and don't need it. Now you can cycle it.
Actually, the cycling card I really like is that worm, something the greater sandworm, which is a 5 and 2 green, 7/7 worm, I think, or sandworm, and can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and has cycling 2.
You like that for constructed?
No, not for constructed. Well, for constructed, you can like
No,
animate it, right?
no. Yes, but no.
You're not gonna put that in your living end deck,
No, hell no.
really?
No,
It's cycling 2. It's 7/7.
no,
No, really?
no.
Okay. I don't know.
Because
I'm not a living end player, so
because it doesn't do anything.
He does. He's
It's
big.
just a 7/7 where you have that guy that's
Can't be
six.
blocked by creatures with power 2 or less.
Yeah, no one has power to or less in modern anyway. Well, Snapcaster, Mage, Bob, a ton of things, but you're not worried about them blocking anyway.
Isn't a boggle like 1/1?
It isn't when it's equipped. So
Touche.
anyway, so what to remember about cycling? So we're not gonna talk about each card because that's like for a different show, maybe a different topic. We're gonna talk about when cycling is good and when cycling is bad. So cycling is good for cards that are normally sideboard cards. And we're still talking about you, Sweltering Suns. It could normally just be a sideboard card. You're not gonna put it in main deck when there's a chance that you're not gonna be playing it. But now, if there's a really dominant aggro deck that you're afraid of, you can actually play this main deck and then just cycle it when you don't need it. Another good reason to play cycling cards is when you can reanimate them, like what Elvin said, which is
Yeah.
what Living Eld is gonna be doing with a lot of these cards. There are actually 3 good cards that are going in my deck. And I think is there a card with cycling and embalm both in the same card? No, right?
I don't think so.
They should
That
have
would
done
be
that.
the bomb, as the
Eh,
kids say nowadays.
yeah, I guess. But anyway, so cycling, you do cycling for that. You
Is
do
there a time
cycling
when
for.
cycling is bad?
Is there a time when cycling is
Because
bad?
I think because it's supposed to be just an ability, so it's like a cherry on top of something, right?
The problem with cycling is you take away a little from what the creature is able to do because you put cycling
Well,
on it.
that's a problem with the creature, not with the mechanic. So I think
If the creature is good as it is without cycling and you add cycling to it, then it's just better.
exactly. So
But
cycling is never bad.
if the cycling on its own is never bad, but
Okay,
sometimes you get creatures that won't be good
gotcha. I see what you mean.
won't be good on their own, but they're just good because they have cycling.
Got it.
I wish they had land cycling this set, but no, no.
They do have land cycling.
No, they have lands that cycle.
Oh, what is land cycling?
Land cycling is, for example, plain cycling, swamp cycling, where you cycle a card, but instead of drawing a card, you search for
What?
a land.
Wow, that's a fetch land.
Yeah, essentially, something like that.
That
It goes to
that's
hand.
broken.
It goes to hand.
Still.
It's not broken. Like people don't even play with it in modern.
Oh, okay.
I do.
It's not
but
broken then.
yeah, it's not. It's not broken
That
because
sounds
you
cool.
because you pay 2, 3 mana, 2 maybe 1 at least to search for a card. Tempo wise in modern that's bad. Anyway, going back to standard, so that's another situation where cycling is good when the card is itself is good, and then you put cycling on it. In limited though,
Cycling would be king.
cycling is it?
Because I think
This is
in a
something that I
limited,
haven't thought of as much. How good is cycling in limited?
well, if you have a creature that is, say, casting cost 4 or greater, and it has cycling, it now is generally going to be a better creature because if you get it
Yeah, no,
early in the game,
this
right?
is assuming that the creature is good in itself without the cycling. But you need to remember that most creatures get something taken away from them because they get cycling. Like if you're talking about the what's the demon, the
Fiend of something
Fiend of
something.
Ifrit, something like that. No, Archfiend of Ifnir, which is in limited. This is a 5 cost 5/4 flyer, which gives your opponent's creatures -1/-1 every time you cycle or discard a card, which is good by itself. So you add cycling to it, it's like the bomby bomb. But for these kinds of cards, it's a no-brainer. But for some cards that are like, for example, it's just a 2-mana 2/2 with cycling, then is it like you a 2-mana 2/2 is something that you'd fill your deck with if you couldn't play anything else. But if it had cycling, would it be more playable? Is the question. I guess yes, because if you draw it late.
You just cycle it and you draw a card. Once again, cycling saves this.
But what if it's a 2-mana 1/2 with cycling?
That's terrible.
Then it's terrible, right?
It's terrible.
So
nothing can save that.
there's a
You could
thin
you could
there's a
give it
thin
invulnerability.
line, I guess, between
Actually, no. Vulnerability would make it good.
no.
Two casting cost 1/2. Super chump blocker.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
In
No,
limited.
but no, but
I'm
the thing,
I'm talking about
but the thing is, I mean, in limited, I think there's a fine line between
flying
where
invulnerable.
cycling becomes a good card.
I guess it would hit a level of
I mean,
diminishing returns.
with I mean an initially bad card. I mean, when an initially bad card becomes a good card is what I mean.
Gotcha.
So
But yeah, you would reach a point where the benefit that it adds doesn't really mitigate how bad the card is.
yeah, so I guess it has to be the card at least needs to start being a C card, which is your deck filler cards. The cards that are bad but you wouldn't mind playing if you had anything else. But not if the card is a D card, which is generally a card that you won't play, and then just add cycling to it, it won't matter, right?
Gotcha.
Unless it's free cycling, which is never the case in this set at least.
Is there been a card that's free cycling?
Uh
Well, I know there's like where you pay life to cycle.
Yeah, you pay live, which is that's okay in limited, I guess. If you know what's a really good cycling card though in limited, it's Lake Claim, which is uncommon. It's 5 blue.
Oh yeah, the gain control of target permanent.
Yeah, it's 5 blue for a what do you call that spell?
Aura
No, what do you call the spell that gains control of something?
control magic.
Control magic. Yeah, it's a 7-mana
But
control
isn't it
magic with
control
cycling too.
target permanent?
Permanent.
Because control magic is only creatures.
Okay, then it's better. But of course, you're getting creatures in. So that this is an example of a card which is still a good, but not as good because it's 7 mana. But you add cycling 2 to it, then it's now really, really, really good at an uncommon.
Oh, that's just uncommon.
Yep.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
I mean, this is a big set, so uncommons would come like just slightly easier than a rare, but still pretty
Gotcha.
rare.
Right.
A specific one, I mean.
So, besides cycling, which is the comeback kit of this set, we're treated to new mechanics as well. So, what's the next mechanic that we're gonna discuss here, JR?
So we have embalm and what's the other one? Oh my god, I
The
forgot.
card type?
Oh, yeah, only have
or
3?
Exhaust?
Oh, exhaust and embalm.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
Let's talk about exhaust because exhaust is boring. Let's talk about the boring one first, and let's leave
okay.
the juicy embalm for later.
So what does
It's-
exhaust
it's
do?
so exhaust is it's a trigger ability that it's an ability that triggers when attacking, and it creates an effect. And
Well, it costs you
it costs-
exhausting a
it-
creature, which means
They don't-
reads they don't untap on your next untap step.
Yes. No, it
And-
doesn't say that it taps them, but it says that they don't untap.
Yeah. So basically it's that. It's you have a creature when they attack, you may exhaust them. You may not. If you do, they get
Get
some
benefit.
cool ability like an anthem or a an additional attack step for the really cool red card, but they do not untap on your next untap step. So essentially, it's like having an ability ready for you to use, but you'd normally be using on your final Alpha Strike ish ones, right?
Well, that's one of them. The one that was spoiled really early was this dragon. I can't recall
Oh, the
exactly
one
its
that
name.
the one that deals 3 damage or something.
4 damage.
Glory Seeker, I think. Glory Bringer.
Yeah, so it's like a flyer and attacks and then deals 4 damage. Wow.
Yeah, I guess that's awesome and limited, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be exerting this
Does it
one
deal
too
damage
much.
to target creature or player or just creature?
Target non-dragon creature on opponent
Oh,
controls.
okay. Non-dragon, huh?
Yeah,
Okay.
because there aren't really any dragons in the set. So,
Except itself, I
Yeah.
guess.
so
Yeah. So, anything else to say about Exhaust?
for standard, you would be looking at this either for aggro decks or combo decks, where you actually get to do something with that exhaust, or you get to untap. Because it doesn't untap during your untap step. You can untap it if you have something that does so.
And if it doesn't tap in the first place,
If
doesn't
it
matter.
has vigilance, then it's moot. Anyway, in standard, you're looking at this like more for the anthem effects, the additional attack step that you can do early, because you compute damage. Like if you exert this guy, you'll be doing this much additional damage, but you'll be doing this less damage because he won't be able to attack next turn. So you're just computing it like that. For combo decks though, like I mentioned, you get to do something cool and then you get to untap it. You're looking for things like that. So you're not really looking for Glory Bringer doing 4 damage to a creature on the ground, but you don't get to attack for 4 in the air if you're aggro. But 5 cost 4 flyer haste is not too bad in the first place. So for him, for example, that's just a bonus ability. Most of the time, it's a combo-ish thing, but for some instances, it's a bonus ability that you don't really need to think about too much.
Do you think it was a wasted opportunity for them to allow a shortening of terms? So instead of it being just a mechanic, you could make it a keyword like exhaust means does not untap during your next upkeep.
Yeah, I guess that works, but they're looking. I guess they're looking more of the exhaustion as something that has a benefit as opposed to just being
Being a
a
state.
drawback of state of
Well,
exhaustion.
Well, like or sacrifice a creature is sacrifice is a term that we use for taking a creature, choosing a creature, and putting it into your graveyard. So why not just using exhaustion as this choose a creature, that creature does not untap during your next untap phase.
Or I think no, it's no. Let me rephrase that. It's more of its exhaustion is more of a cost compared to an effect like exhaust to do something. It's not do this to exhaust something.
Well, so sacrifice is also a cost, right?
No, sacrifice is an effect.
But it can also be a
It
cost.
can be a cost, but it's an effect. As opposed to exhaustion being a cost for most things.
Okay.
I guess that's the main difference. I mean, yes, it's mechanically it's interchangeable, but I'm guessing the only reason why they didn't do that is this because they totally could have done that otherwise.
Well, these are the guys that also made the Sahili thing, right? So, Felidar thing. Maybe, you're human and they make mistakes and,
Yeah.
they're only human, flesh and blood. And then,
No, but I mean, the security thing was something you could miss. You can't miss something like not naming a mechanic a keyword.
because exhaustion is such a.
Or maybe they didn't want to, because there are a lot of card games that use exhaustion as something. I don't know.
Well, maybe. We don't.
We
We don't.
don't
We
know
will
the
never really
actual
know unless
reason.
we have somebody.
Unless someone explains it.
Yeah, until we have somebody from Magic R&D telling us, right?
When Mark Rosewater eventually listens to the podcast and gives us insight, then yeah.
Yeah, and until that time, then we will be left forever in mystery.
But for those that were wondering, yes, it's almost interchangeable. So moving on to the next one, which is Embalm.
Embalm.
So-
So the Embalm says pay a cost. It only works if the creature is in the graveyard, and you pay a cost to exile the creature from your graveyard and then create a white zombie token in play that is the creature in all aspects.
It's essentially a flash. It's essentially flashback for creatures,
Except it makes them white.
except for it makes them a white zombie token.
Yeah.
In standard, it's pretty easy how to rate an embalm card if it's good. First, the creature has to be good, because otherwise, what's the point? And next would be looking at the return similar to a flashback card. So when is a flashback card good? Well, one thing is if the card is good and then it flashes back for like the same cost, then it's better. Other instances where the card is not as good and not as appropriately costed, but the flashback cost is cheap, or embalm effect. Let's stick to the proper term. And the embalm cost is cheap, where you where it's something like you discard the card and then you embalm it for really cheap. Like
Yeah, I think there's a legendary or a mythic creature that is is it 7 casting cost 7/7 trample that has a embalm cost of 4.
no, it's 6.
6?
It's 6 cost, 6 trample, with an embalm cost of 4. It's essentially, if you so here's what I was talking about. You remember there was a card, Roar of the
Roar of the
Worm.
Worm.
Yeah, it's a 6 cost card that creates a 6/6.
Yeah.
But flashbacks for 4, and it's playable because of the flashback cost, and that didn't even have trample. So this same concept for Honor the Hydra. It's a bad creature by itself. In standard, in limited, it's good. In standard, but once you find a way to discard it, it's a 4/4/6/6 trample, which is absolutely tremendous. And plus,
I think
it's
it's cheaper than Roar of the Worm because Roar of the Worm is 7 cost.
I don't know, but because you never who hardcasts that, right?
Yeah, well,
It
true.
costs, to me, Roar of the Worm costs 4. Yeah, so it's the same concept. Like whatever parameters you use to make a flashback card good, it's the same as embalm. So in standard, it's pretty easy. Like a 2 cost 2/2 with embalm 2 is not gonna be good in standard. I mean, right? So yeah, in standard it's pretty easy to evaluate. In limited though, I strongly think that embalm is gonna be
Super good
yeah, and underappreciated actually.
because it's embalm is essentially an extra creature.
It's an extra creature, but the creature has to die first. So I mean,
It-
people
it-
will be looking at it like that.
Yeah, well, you cast the creature, it dies because you block with it, or it's killed by your opponent's spells. Then you play it again. So
If it's a bomb creature, then yes, that's automatically a good card. Like there's an angel that I'm not even reading the text. It's an angel. It's a 3/4 angel for 5 with embalm. That's already good. It does more stuff. I don't care. You had
that
me at
angel, I think
embalm.
it's like it's the angel that when it comes to play, exile target creature and target creature until it goes away.
Yeah, even without that, it's good. Like even just as a 5 cost 3/4 flying with embalm, it's good. I'd play that, right?
Mhm.
So you see how I think even R&D undervalues embalm, that they put more text on that thing. The thing is, for big creatures, it's pretty easy. For smaller creatures though, you'd want embalm on creatures that trade up. So if I had a 2 mana 3/1 with embalm 3, that would be awesome because you play it on turn 2, you trade with your 3-drop or 4-drop, and then you embalm it, and that's just a ton of awesome. There's even a card that blocks 2 creatures with embalm, so you
I think that's one of the first ones that female
that got
female
spoiled.
one of the female fighters, pit fighter, like a female pit fighter.
Yeah, something like that. So that card is also
I
good
do enjoy the fact that there are token creatures for every embalm creature that you can get in the pack.
yeah, I imagine they're pretty hard to get though because of the sheer number of tokens in the
It's
set.
like the tokens will cost money.
Yeah, eventually.
Wow.
I'm thinking, wait,
No,
right
it's
off
not
the bat,
expensive, but you know,
well, it
Like-
depends because
like that-
lately Wizards have been printing a lot of like
Tokens.
the back-to-back creature, the back-to-back stuff, foil tokens. I imagine they're gonna be doing that for the embalm
we
things.
will be opening a couple of we'll be opening a few.
No, but those you don't get out of packs. Those you get out of the leagues, the beginner things.
Really?
The foil
the
tokens?
foil tokens.
The,
No, I mean, sorry, not the foil token. I'm just talking about the normal tokens.
oh
Just
yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see.
in the packs.
Because the ratio for those aren't really discussed anywhere. So
Yeah, I know we're talking about mechanics, but I just want to point out to everybody listening that is confused at the fact that why are mummies white? All right, here's some knowledge I'm just gonna drop on all of you.
it's
All
not
right.
it's not whitewashing in case.
Okay,
you're-
it's not whitewashing. All right, so some people don't know a little game, a little indie game called Dungeons and Dragons. All right, so in Dungeons and Dragons, you have creatures that are undead, and that's black, and it's going to be negative energy. Thing is, mummies are different. Go through a process, and they're imbued with positive energy because of the sun worship. The reason why it's white is because of the sun. So mummies are always white. So you guys out there that don't understand the fact that why is a zombie white instead of black? It's because it's a different kind of zombie. It's a mummy, and mummies are white because they are filled with positive energy and life-giving energy. That's what they are. For the edification.
Is that lore exclusive to D&D?
D&D was one of the first things that said that, but you can
Because you could read
extrapolate.
stuff about mummies and other.
Because mummies don't
books
come
and
out
they
at
don't.
night. Mummies come out, when you open the tomb. They're essentially powered by the sun. The sun, Ra,
The sun god.
the sun god, is sort of like the source of power for them. That's just a little bit of lore, so it makes total sense. When I saw that they're mummies, they're white, aren't they? There you go. So it's not whitewashing.
Does Wizards still own D&D?
Yeah, Wizards of the Coast
Like
owns Dungeons and Dragons.
completely
Yeah.
own it?
Hasbro owns Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the
Yeah,
Coast.
there you go. So of course they'd follow.
But yeah, that's it. It just makes sense. Positive energy, white mana. Negative energy, black mana. Wild energy, green mana. Chaotic energy, red mana, and order.
Time manipulation.
Manipulation energy, time energy, mind energy, blue. Anyway, there's one more thing that Amonkhet gave us. Not really a mechanic, but more of a new card type.
I'm actually not sure if it's referred to as a card type. I guess it is, right? But they are aftermath cards, which is a new type of split card.
It's important for us to note that Wizards of the Coast wants us to read them as word to word. Okay, so if you have something...
Oh, come on. That wasn't obvious? I mean, it's... Who doesn't know that?
Well, the thing is, I'm putting it out there. That is what Wizards of the Coast wants it to be read.
Yeah, but who doesn't know that?
But why did they just put a 2 at the end?
Because where would you put it?
2, next to the first word.
So it's... So...
Dusk. Because
Because if you put it next to the first word, technically, when you cast the first card,
you say...
you're gonna
Dusk.
cast start 2, which doesn't make sense.
Well, here's the thing. You have dusk. Is it dusk to dawn? Or dusk till dawn?
No, it's dusk to dawn.
Exactly, but it's supposed to be dusk till dawn.
No, it's not the time frame. It's saying it
It's a
transformed
Quentin
dusk to
Tarantino-
dawn.
It's the Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, because that movie was about stuff that
spoil.
happened from dusk
dusk
till
till
dawn.
Yeah.
This is like saying it's this is what dusk is, and this is what dawn is. It's
And
like
your card is transforming from a dusk card to dawn card.
something like that. Yeah.
Like the feed. What's the other one? The food.
Mouth to feed.
Mouth to feed.
It's dead obvious. I didn't know why.
Or cut
why you
to
didn't-
ribbons.
why you had to mention that, but okay.
It's just really fun. I find it really funny that Wizards, well, any organization tells you, okay, this is how you read it.
Like
boys
the
and girls.
fact that you see a card that's rags riches. I mean,
Rags and riches.
no.
Don't you know the old term, rags and riches?
Okay. Failure comply.
Failure of comply.
No.
Come on, I can do this all day.
No. Never return. Well, that works on its own.
You never
Insult injury.
insult my injury.
In
See, it works.
no,
works
but
so
it doesn't
well.
work for everything. So it
Fight
has to
the
be.
power, people.
It's only 2
Don't
that
say
works.
2 if you don't want to. I say 2 because it makes sense, and JR also does it because it makes sense. But if you feel like using a different connecting word, use it. Anyway, what do the cards do?
Essentially, what's the term for the first card? I think they're referring to the second card as the aftermath card,
What is before an aftermath?
the before math. No, the math.
Uh, what? That's actually a good question to ask Google.
But anyway, while you're googling that, it's two cards. One is an aftermath card, and one is a regular card. Essentially, the regular card you can play as it normally is. This is the upright card, and the aftermath is a card that you can play once it's in the graveyard. So for some cards, it's an instant. The regular card is an instant, and the aftermath card is sorcery. It could be anything. I don't think they have creatures, but if they wanted to, they could do that. But then it would mess with the Embalm team. But anyway, so yeah, they could be two completely different cards with two completely different costs. The one you could play from hand and one you can play from your graveyard.
But
So
on a side note, injecting here, aftermath is defined as something that results or follows an event, especially one of a disastrous or unfortunate nature. So I guess the first one would be an event.
yeah, I paused a bit because I looked at the cards if they're all destroy effects because of aftermath. But no, some actually create things.
Yeah, one creates and then one eats it. The aftermath is the before and after.
No. Some cards both destroy and something like that, or the other way around. As far as evaluating the cards for standard, I think these are
There's this card. I know there's this aftermath card that I think is really good. I think it's really good for like a aggressive deck.
which one?
A red card.
Red
I
and
think
black.
it's
Cut the
the,
rib.
no, not cut. Is it cut ribbons? It's two colorless red. Instant until end of turn. People can prevent damage, and when a source of damage,
Yeah.
when one of your
Insult to
permanents
injury.
deals. Yeah, insult. What's insult? Can you read insult again?
Insult is damage can be prevented this turn. If a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals double the damage instead.
That sounds like a really good card for like even constructed. Like,
Except that it's a sorcery.
oh, it's a sorcery. Oh,
Yeah.
huh.
Even injury is a sorcery. Injury deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player. It's actually, yeah,
sorcery
as
before combat.
you would play it if you knew you were playing against a fog deck, I guess, right? If
Well,
you're
yeah, I guess, but at the same time, I was thinking like in certain decks, I
Yeah,
recall back
you won't
in,
play it for the double damage. That's
well,
the thing.
because I remember back then in
You know why?
Kaladesh,
Because
we
you
were,
can't
like,
use it
paying
for
3
instants.
costs. Oh yeah, that's true.
Because I would use it if you could like lightning bolt and this as a. I mean, it's not that good, but as a worst case scenario, you could do that. At least it transforms into a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
But the fact that it can't even do that, it essentially just doubles your creature damage. I mean, it like if you had an artifact that did that, then maybe. But I mean, most of the time you're gonna be using it as a double strike, and even then, double strike would be better.
Especially as an instant, because I remember there's like a
Yeah, as an
um,
instant
as an
and as
instant.
something that makes you not trade.
Yeah.
Although injury does add a bit of power to it, but nah.
Okay.
So yeah, so for these cards, if you don't have a way to discard them, the first effect needs to be good for these cards to be good. Like Dusk, for example, it's 2 white white, destroy all creatures with power 3 or greater. I imagine that if you're a weenie deck, then you'd play that. And Dawn, which is it's 2 card, returns your tiny creatures. So you have a way to deal with mid range, and if you ever board wipe, you get your stuff back. I mean, you'd play it for Dusk alone. Adding Dawn to it just makes it more powerful. Don't look at them like you have 2 cards, or don't even look at them like you have a split card. Look at the non aftermath card
The
first.
event
If
card?
they're good enough for you. If they're not, then I'd rather not play one.
Mhm.
In limited though, they're a little bit better because
Card efficiency.
it's 2 cards and card count is really big in limited, but still you need to be getting value off of the first card.
Mhm.
Like prepare to fight. Prepare a tap target creature gets 2 oh, well, lifelink, that makes it good. But yeah, I mean otherwise and it's a fight card. Okay, that's a good card. Bad example, but I'm looking for a bad card in limited.
Well, most cards are good. in
Most
limited.
cards are good.
Yeah, especially if it's efficient. It's if it's really.
Some of the cards are good, like in limited, like Destined to Lead, which gives 1 creature +1 and indestructible and end of turn. Destined does that, and lead makes all their creatures block your creature. So if you can cast that in one turn, that would be awesome. Something like that, because you can still cast both cards in the same turn. The main thing you look at when evaluating these cards are mana cost. Because if you want, because if you're in it for the aftermath card, then and not getting too much value off of the first card, but the event card, we're gonna call it event card, fine.
Yeah.
But if the event card is cheap enough
Hashtag event card.
and and is cheap enough and it's an instant, then it's fine. So yeah, I mean, there are several ways of evaluating it, but but rule of thumb, if you don't know what you're doing, look at the event card. See if it's good enough for you.
Yeah,
In
so
all
the red
formats.
zone rule of thumb:
Yeah.
if the event works, then sure, maybe the aftermath is worth it. But if the event sucks, then just skip it.
Then you have to. Mm,
Move on.
No,
Move
no,
on.
not move on. But you have to. Then the aftermath card really has to be worth, like the aftermath card has to be an A card or something.
Gotcha. All right. Do we want to talk about although it's not really a mechanic, but this one is related to a rule change that came recently. Do you want us to talk about that before we end the show?
within the split cards.
Yeah. Because although this isn't a split card, it's an
It is a
aftermath
split
card.
It's
It's
technically
a
still a
kinda
split
split.
card. Because the fusion cards are split cards. The split cards are split
Yeah, but
cards.
because those cards both sides can't be used. This one side can't actually be used
Yeah,
until it goes to the graveyard.
So yeah, the rule change basically is every card now that has a split card, or which has more than one cards on its face, the converted mana cost now is the total of the cards. Like if they eventually print 3 cards, then it would be the total of the 3 cards. For now they're all 2 cards. So converted mana cost is the 2. The types are still the same. It's the types of both the cards or one of them, depending on what depending if you have a trigger looking for a specific card type, or if you're or something the other way around. But yeah, basically it's the same, aside from the converted mana costing, which they're probably done because of what's the new card, the
As foretold.
As Foretold, which potentially breaks these cards. So it affects not only that, it affects the what was the mechanic from last set?
Expertise.
Yeah. Oh no, it's not a mechanic actually.
It's a cycle of cards.
But yeah, the expertise cycle of cards, which plays a card with cost X or less. So before you could choose that card with, like, you could choose the event card, which costs 2, but then play the aftermath card, which costs 4. Now
or vice versa,
or,
like if
or
the
the other
aftermath
way
is smaller.
around. Yeah, but now you can't do that anymore because it's gonna be the total cost. If somehow that still fits, then you could still do that. But it kills actually a lot. It kills the beck and call combo in modern, in the like,
Yeah, there's like a
whatever thing
deck
that's
called
famous.
Bird Brain or something in modern before.
That's the beck and call deck,
I guess so.
I guess. So yeah, that's the relevant rule change. They did that, and I guess they wanted to do that. They had their eye on doing that, but just did that just in time for this, so that, to make it timely.
But I see their point of making it a little bit easier. Like only when you care about it is it like the card itself. But when it's not a card, then you just put the numbers together. I guess there's a certain logic to that, but I do feel for the players who aren't able to play the decks anymore that take advantage of that mechanic.
To me, actually, it makes more sense because the converted mana cost of the card is like, all of the costs of the card. I mean, it doesn't make sense that you could expertise a card that costs 2 to play the card to play a total cost of 8. I mean, it breaks things.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Which it did.
It does. It's though I don't think it breaks it to the point of being oppressive, but I do see the logic in what
No,
they're doing.
it didn't do that before because there weren't any cards that were gonna be broken. But I haven't looked at the aftermath cards, but there could have potentially been something broken if they could have done that with aftermath. That's why they did it now.
Yeah, which actually is a good segue to a future topic that we have. We haven't really discussed the cards that we like. It pre-release is already done by the time that we upload this, but there'll still be more chances for you to play sealed versions of this. And we want to give our thoughts on the cards that we like. Maybe we'll do a top 10 or maybe a deep dive of more specific cards that catch our fancy or pique our interest, things that we'd want to share with you guys. But that would unfortunately have to be in a different show because we've gone quite some time now, and that's just with the topics that we've covered. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Red Zone podcast. We're going to continue making more content for you guys, and we continually look for your feedback and your thoughts. Please comment, like, subscribe, and comment on below this video. And do you have anything else there?
No. We're gonna remind them that we have the giveaway again, which we still haven't done.
We promise we're gonna do the giveaway. It's just that
we're gonna do it this week. I'm gonna make time for it this week.
Yeah, and we're gonna try to make sure because it's just here. The prizes are just here. We know we're not keeping them. It's just we want to reward. We want to reward our viewers, our Red Zoners here. So
we're trying to think of a good contest, basically.
Yeah, if you have ideas, guys, comments are below. And thank you for listening to another episode of the Red Zone podcast. This is Elvin.
And I'm JR.
And thank you and good night. So I was looking for something to watch this past week, and I came across something that I didn't realize was there. You remember the movie Tangled?
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts of the movie Tangled? I myself, I enjoyed it because it was like I see it as like the start of Disney's second renaissance as far as quality.
I mean, it's okay. It's not Aladdin level goodness.
But from the modern day.
Are we saying that the modern day Disney stuff are worse?
Yeah,
they are, but
it wasn't good for the longest time. But anyway, starting with Tangled, they started getting good.
No, they actually wanted to make that renaissance when they did what's the frog
Princess and the Frog.
Because they went back to animation and then they say that we're doing bad because we're doing 3D, but let's do the animation so we become awesome again. But it wasn't. It was okay.
But just I know what you mean. But Tangled I think was the good first one because it was Tangled, I think before Wreck-It Ralph, and then Frozen.
I guess,
which is also
you put it that way.
Then Moana,
which I haven't watched,
which is actually pretty good. Anyway, back to Tangled. So it was the beginning. Last month apparently it's back, and so it's now a series. And the thing is, it's a series with the same voice cast. So it's Mandy Moore as Rapunzel, Zachary Levi as Eugene Fitzherbert, which is his real name, or Flynn Rider if you want.
Yeah.
And then it's essentially the same voices as the guys from the movie, and they introduce new characters and all that. But it's really interesting because it's
did the Aladdin series have Robin Williams do the voices for the series?
It was Dan Castellaneta.
The one from The Simpsons?
Yeah, I think the one that did the voice of the genie. I think I don't quote me on that, but it's not Robin Williams. None. I think none of the characters. It's very rare that person from the movie.
I mean, but they could have because those people weren't high profile.
Still, it doesn't really happen often because people still have their projects and all that, and you can't really commit to something like this. But kudos to Mandy Moore and Zachary Levi because I guess Chuck's over, so Zachary Levi doesn't really have anything to do between Thor movies.
And Mandy Moore doesn't really get cast for anything.
That's sad, but
because she's too tall.
I guess
she is.
She's not a good
giant
leading lady because she's an
Amazon. She's like
because she dwarfs all of the leading men.
Yeah, not Yeah.
Except Zachary Levi is pretty tall.
Still.
So he was actually a good height match for her. I remember seeing them sing on the Oscar. So anyway, Tangled the series begins with a movie before Ever After, which is essentially between the 6 months after the movie and before the animated short Ever After, which is where they got married. And so, and it's really funny because this is like the first episode. So Flynn's okay, I'm gonna marry her. You know, we defeated the villain. We're gonna be happily ever after. She's gonna be crowned a princess. I'm gonna ask her to marry me. And when he does, she says no. It's hilarious.
Well, that's what you would expect from the character, though, right?
But exactly, because it's true to the character. It's not like, oh, okay, well, we just met 6 months and now I'm gonna have to marry you. No, I love you, but no.
Yeah.
And she's like trapped again because she wants to be free. She wants to go out in the world, whereas everybody else says, "Oh no, settle down." But she hasn't seen the world that everybody else has. So that's a very nice, nice place for character, for story to begin. So and they use hand-drawn animation, with I guess with a little bit of CGI. But
it's hand-drawn now.
Hand-drawn, yeah. It's not like low-rent CGI like Kung Fu Panda or anything like that. But looks pretty good. If anybody wants to, I think there's like 4 episodes plus a 1-hour Disney movie. It's not like super actiony or anything like that, but if you enjoyed the movie, it's a nice little 20 minutes that you can enjoy. So Rapunzel the series.